Aloha. Today I wanted to go into Netflix and basically all of the docile drips that are delivered to the mainstream or the public through the mainstream agenda. Netflix being one of the big new sort of distractions, along with the HBO online thing, and then the Hulu and the Amazon and Vudu and all those other programs that they have, since cable and news is kind of deteriorating, or definitely deteriorating, or mostly just being seen for what it is. They have to get more and more distractions out there, and with that, more and more information has to be put out there, and with more and more information has to be more and more of a intricate, or a better word would be like I guess algorithms that are more direct and focused on a more like progressive intent involving whatever the motives are, or the agenda is for more control, or the dominating force of, like, what was the driving force behind the news, the corrupt news and the corrupt politics and the corrupt Hollywood scene, and even through the cartoons and all the other stuff that is out there. These are just sort of the things that are out that are, these are just distractions. So I wanted to really tap on one of these that came up earlier, as far as so this is kind of like a subtle disclosure. People talk about disclosure, UFO disclosure, and government disclosure and all this other stuff, but this is just the stuff that's meant to like soften the blow, along with designing information threads that tell a specific story, and only tell a story that only goes so far, and that those limitations, those walls, those ceilings that get put out there are no different than the ones that were from before, when the channel of information was only like channel 2, channel 7, channel 4, channel 44, and like when you had to go up to the TV and click it with your hands and do all that other stuff. That's a channel of limitation that was put out. So they have stuff like they know people are. I just use "they" as a vague term for an intelligence that is behind the math and the geometry of these structures that are meant to distract the masses. So you have Kennedy out, like the Kennedy disclosure. They're only going to say so much. The 60s, all this stuff is really just focused on like the civil rights movement, and what happened with with that scene. So this goes back into like where and when history, or the foundations of information, starts, and they want to create platforms of interaction within your mind and within yourself, and how you interact with yourself, and you see yourself and what you consider change to be. So they create platforms and foundations that make you feel like things are changing by what is considered to be mainstream, or what is seen to be available to the so-called mainstream public, but it's really just a deeper thread that is locked down to a foundation that is destructive. So like this one is really one that got me, and I wanted to do this video about, is because the rest is just kind of like doesn't really matter, because this locks in directly to what's going on today. And I really don't even have to do any more of this video, but after I speak on this, but I'll go through just to show some more examples. But this one called Dark Legacy, and I haven't even seen it yet. It came out in 2009. So the death of JFK is viewed from another angle in this film that introduces George H.W. Bush as a key player in the assassination plot and cover-up. So I mean, that alone, like that being on on the screen on Netflix, and to still have Jeb Bush being running for president today, on his most basic scheme, on a deeper level, people are already doing research and already knowing on a heart-to-heart level that the assassination of JFK was part of a whole conspiracy plot to maintain a certain dynamic in the White House and the future movements of our society. So a lot of this JFK stuff is coming out. A lot of this is the 50 years after they got to release all these documents. So this is kind of like the soft disclosure. Like there's soft openings. These are like soft disclosures. And goes into TED Talks. And not even want to go into TED Talks, but TED Talks is just another a deeper layer. So if Netflix is one layer of disclosure that is a soft disclosure, TED Talks is meant to be like more of a scientific or it's part of it, just deeper threads like a guitar. I guess guitar strings would have like deeper, like a bass, thicker strings. They make different tones, so when you watch them they feel differently, and they make a certain harmonic that is meant to feel and look a certain way, but when you really look at it, you're still playing the same instrument that was meant to destroy and control. And what gets sprinkled in there is deeper, like Zeitgeist, the movie. This came out in 2007. This goes into this is one of the movies. This is a movie or a documentary that I came up on in 2008, I believe. Somebody just sent it to me in an email, and it goes through all the history of the religions and the government and 9/11 disclosure and all this other stuff. So the financial markets and how it's only a global financial markets and international power structure, it says right on there. But it's really just, this is a further this is basically, see, I haven't even gone through all this stuff. Like, this is 9/11 in plain sight. So all this is basically to soften the blow of disclosure and what that links to involving the individuals behind it. Because people use the word disclosure and all this other stuff about UFOs and the government and so on, but it's really it's a painful thing, like, to be just throwing around there on a Netflix thing. I mean, it's not really to see all this stuff on here like it's just something you watch like a movie on here. So it's really just making these serious things. People that are still dying for this stuff today, the actions of this stuff that happened so long ago and that's still going on today. People are still dying today, suffering today, developing cancers today from these decision makers that are still in the White House today, still making moves for large groups of people around the world, even in your own community today. And basically, I like going through here. I don't watch Netflix at all, only to check out the trend of Netflix and the trend of things, because I like paying attention to the trend of things. So when I am around friends that have Netflix or Hulu or whatever it is, I'll check it out to see what the flow of information is going on through this pretty much open source network of information that It used to be just like movies and stuff, but now it's being utilized to share information. So they got Russell Brand on here. So these are just like threads and dots that get connected, and then you go on YouTube or you go on your books or the library or whatever to go research all this stuff. But even clicking through all this stuff and just watching this, like watching these titles and looking at all this stuff and reading just the just the descriptions of this stuff is a disclosure in itself. You can put together a story itself. You can see what is part of um, these behind the scenes stories just by looking at this stuff. And this is a way to kind of like soften the blow of just so many decades and really centuries of lies. And that's another part of the main point is if we as the mass population, the masses have been can see that we've been lied to just on Netflix for decades. That's really the stream of thought that see, and all this stuff that gets sprinkled in here is like part of the agenda, like telling you how to think, telling you how to feel, even if you don't watch this stuff. So back to what I was saying before. Um, if we can understand as a mass population that we've been lied to for decades, and you can go on Netflix and see that that's true, that these lies have been going on for decades, and disclosure comes out and says, yeah, we've been lying to y'all for decades, then everybody is like, oh yeah, they want to feel good about something, and then that's what they're gonna feel good about, because something is better than nothing. And what the whole story is being missed is that you might be eating a microwave, hungry man TV dinner of decades, and you might get through your next few weeks, days, even your lifetime happily surviving off that hungry man decade TV dinner, and never really going into understanding the fact that these stories are meant to hide the fact that these lies go back centuries of information that's being hidden. And it's not as simple as the movie, the Netflix disclosure space would have you believe. Another part of it is just straight up programming, just supremacy programming. So, I mean, you can go on all through all this stuff, even the way they have these designed. These so-called feel-good, girl-powered children and family categories. Who the hell thinks of these categories? Who names these categories? The way these categories are even named is fucked up. Like, it's just really... Like, just go through all this stuff and see the programming and then understand what Disney is and what Disney does. The subliminal messages that's been going on through Disney since the beginning, and going into the old school cartoons. And I was thinking about that. Right, I'll go into that maybe some other time, but I'll not hint on it, but talk about now, like the old school cartoons. If you watch the old cartoons like Looney Tunes and all that stuff, you'll see how jacked up the programming is, and or even related to like the beginning time frames of TV. Like look at all this. What does this make you think? Like how, like for like a little Mexican girl or something who's like watching this and just only seeing these designs on here. I mean, it's a whole mess. Geometry. Like, it makes you not like yourself from not understanding yourself, because you don't see yourself as equally or equal to the majority that gets pumped through these systems like Netflix, commercials, cartoons, um, teachers in your schools. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. And that's the deeper layers of control, the subconscious control that goes on that we don't really pay attention to. And stuff gets sprinkled in there to make it seem like it's a universal kind of idea, but it's not. So, yeah, they're talking about this Hitler stuff, revealing Hitler stuff, WikiLeaks. It's just distraction after distraction, and really, like Netflix, and another part of it now, Netflix is designed to keep you in a space of, oh, there's so much information out there, I'm just overwhelmed, I can't know all this stuff, or I can't, connect all these dots or whatever. It's really not about, each and every individual thing or storyline that's out there. It's more of understanding the threads that are, the colors of this all, the smells of this all, the way all this stuff feels, and the way it's put out there for how you can think, and how it makes you think, and how it makes you raise your children, and it's a whole process, and what happens to the brains, the minds of the children that are going through this stuff. It's just TV dramas, okay? Like, it's just like, it's blatant. It's blatant. It's ridiculous. So I'll leave it there. I just really wanted to put out there how obvious this soft disclosure, and how really it's just a kind of like a TV dinner disclosure for distraction, biding time, like putting the timelines out there to keep people busy with distractive information, so that the storylines that get put out later on, when the so-called real people who are talking about real stuff, I'm talking about politicians and all the people consider like Hollywood celebrities like politicians too, as far as how they create their reality and believing things, belief and truth and all that. If Denzel Washington comes out and starts talking about stuff, or Russell Simmons, or I'm glad I start talking about that. Yogananda was one of the documentaries that was on here, and I watched that whole thing, and I'm not gonna go too much into it, but they flashed a picture of CERN in there. That ain't got nothing to do with, the Yogananda, thing. It was just so quick, so fast, and it was during like the explanation of America, when Yogananda has to go to America. So they flashed a picture of CERN in there. So it's just like these subconscious, these little subliminal messages to keep you thinking and feeling a certain way. Another part of it that's connected to the Netflix agenda is like the way they flash things in there. So just how Disney puts like sexual innuendos, like sexual subliminal messages in the programs for the kids to get it. So there's subliminal messages like that CERN flash in the Yogananda thing, documentary, to keep people to affect people the same way, just like the Disney movies do for kids. These documentaries and Netflix and all these other shows do the same thing for the adults. And another part of that is that, so one little flash of a picture of like CERN, so it's really just to get you like to trust stuff. So like a flash of CERN in here, to lock it in even deeper. They use celebrities mixed in with yogis and other people, spiritual practitioners, or whatever you want to call them. It's just like a 99 to 1 percentile, and that 1% that gets sprinkled in there kind of validates the rest of Netflix. So just like you see 300 videos on here, um, uh, it's all like the majority is 90%, like 99% of it is white culture or Caucasian culture, and then you got that 1% that is like supposed to be the black and brown peoples on here. That's supposed to validate as far as like universal entertainment or touching all the bases. When overall it's really just completely jacked up the way the whole design is to begin with, the way it's put out there. But to validate even further, within these documentaries, they have celebrities or people like Russell Simmons was in the Yogananda thing. I'm like, Russell Simmons, what's Russell Simmons doing in the Yogananda documentary? And all the stuff that he's been like linked into with Harriet Tubman, like just check all that stuff out. What Professor Griff was talking about in relation to Russell Simmons and all these other celebrities like Beyonce and Jay-Z, and how they're just like out there to put deeper threads, deeper layers of programming in people to keep them believing on certain layers of information. So it's like that 99 to 1% of threads that even if you think you're getting information that is supposed to be for your benefit, like the Yogananda documentary, they got Deepak in there, so Deepak is in there. Deepak's cool. I'm not discrediting or not trying to like put anything out on Deepak, but I don't like the fact that he's connected with Oprah and what Oprah's been doing with the whole spiritual movement and the spiritual, the idea of the spiritual movement with when I'm talking about Oprah and all that stuff. So it's a very kind of touch and go, feely sort of environment that's being merged right now in order to hide a lot of the information that is behind the scenes. And they use people like Deepak and Eckhart Tolle to kind of validate the other information that's going on through the Oprah network. She's still putting Monsanto in a two-page spread advertisement in her old magazines and all this stuff. Like, I mean, they're straight up killing people not only with information but straight food going into your children's bodies. And on, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But it's very, very complicated math and geometry that's within these systems, and I just wanted to put this out there because this is one of the main ones. So I'll leave it there until next time. Peace, love, harmony.